This video is part 2 of the video of the penance of the cross. Now, in the penance of the cross, I speak specifically about where the sin is placed, which essentially sin can be something as very simple, something rather innocent, such as, say, telling a lie here, which lie here might then exponentially multiply, and you finding out the lie is real from a friend or a close one, and the beginning portion of the emotion of the sin that which stimulates the exponential rate at which this multiplies times time and space. While you could see the sin essentially from one person, a simple sin, you could essentially see that the more time and space passes, that essentially, even from one particular simple sin, the potential exponential rate of the emotion that this would arise, known as the penance, the anxiety, the trembling, the anger, all of the negative emotions one might feel essentially are meant to create a complete, immediate emotional experience in order to break that individual out of said emotion. Now, in terms of the initial break of the sin, you might see something as simple as a daughter being molested at 4 years old, all of a sudden seeking to find a way of purging her sins through something as, say, pursuing meth and involving herself with rider biker gangs that which use her as a specific object for their particular pleasing and smuggling, and on and on and on. And we might say, well, that grew rather rapidly, but that's what I mean. Based on one particular individual sin, all of a sudden the exponential rate at which the emotion at which a person feels a purging grows exponentially, and that can take an extremely dark turn, because all of a sudden you might say, well, that individual himself might be feeling a symbolization of Christ in that particular end of the story. The question is, does that particular individual choose to make that happen to themselves, or is it the world that now makes that happen to themselves, or is it now a harmonic ritual? Which in this harmonic ritual, I would argue this is a satanic practice, hence the term, why meth is the devil. And now, let's retract the initial thought. Do you see how we can exponentially grow an emotion within an individual by multiplying a simple sin at an innocent stage, which then exponentially grows into the rise of the emotion that which the breakdown of this particular cross is going to create within that individual? And according to if they can carry that cross based on accepting whatever the cross of that particular feeling might be, that guilt, that fear, that sin, whatever that might be, you hold that on yourself, or you essentially repeat it, and you then become a repeat offender. You then gain a complex where you yourself step above the rest of the world, and you no longer essentially see yourself as equal, which due to this now inequality, you gained a complex where you see a prey-hunter mentality within the world in order to essentially trick people into essentially going back into your sin. Do you see the exponential rate at which one particular sin can grow? And now when we look at the story of Christ, which went from one particular individual, came all exponential sins arriving at said individual. At the exponential rate that which the sin is passed upon the individual, you would actively see the rate at which you create the breakdown within the individual, and the more we see the sickening of the devil within the individual, the more we see the individual wants to pass the breakage of this particular chain or punishment of the cross. And so, if you had to endure it, why shouldn't others have to endure it? Well, if that was the attitude we approached in mentality throughout history, we would arrive to essentially here and now. Because essentially all of human suffering can rest upon one individual's shoulders, but that individual's suffering cannot rest upon anybody else's shoulders. And so the question arises, if we were to look at the analogy now of placing everybody's problems within a hat, say you write a piece of paper, you then fold it, and you place everybody's problems upon a hat. You then shake the hat and you make everybody pick from the hat, pick somebody else's problems. These will be your new problems. What you would essentially find is rather quickly, every single person would essentially go, yeah, I'd like my problems back, please. And that is because you are only wanting to handle your own problems. You don't want to handle somebody else's problems. So if you only want to handle your problems, why are you passing your problems to other people? It's the act of conversation, and in the act of conversation we can create a neutralizing force known as equilibrium, where you can actively de-escalate the emotion out of a person by re-neutralizing them according to the way you specifically resonate their initial power behind the initial thought, that which the emotion they're projecting, their behavior. And through a proper talk down, such as a proper method of communicating, you can actively dissolve any situation if you happen to be wise enough in your ability to communicate well enough. But we as humans are in a present day and age where we no longer communicate well enough. And so, we see that the rise of the guilt and fear being placed upon each individual in their each an individual way. And so, in the beginning of the penance of the cross, the burning, you must first go through the holy flames. And once you've been purged of this penance, where you can simply see that was just a moment of life. And based on that one particular moment, this escalated into right here, right now. And you have the opportunity to forgive and let go of that. But if you can't, that's your choice. And from here on in, that choice is now my choice in terms of if I involve your choices with my choices. And this is how relationship is meant to essentially relate around a form of communication, compromise. And in the compromising of two crosses, two people, two individual stories of individual innocence that resulted in exponential potential of sin within their each and individual story, you can then individually say each individual essentially represents the manifestation of Christ within the Bible, known as a son or below God. In that notion, we arrive here now. You are a Christ of your own. The question now is it the devil or is it God that drives your experience, which results in where ultimately you're experience lies within you. Thank you.